Eventually, I ditched his birthday party. He was mad that I wasn't there early in the afternoon when he hadn't specified a time, and his mom called up my mom and said a bunch of nasty shit about me. So after 6 years of forced friendship, my mom said it was okay if I didn't want to hang out with the kid. He had been coming to my house uninvited and staying for days at a time for a period of about 5 years. His brother's treatment lasted less than a year. My parents knew that entire time that I didn't really enjoy being around him. That's my mom's style, though. Pressure me into doing things I don't want to do, and then acting like I was the driving force behind everything when it falls apart. I lost friends because of this kid. Nobody liked him, and he didn't play well with others, and he didn't play sports. But my mom looked like a good parent for having him over. They've spent most of my adult life giving me selfish advice. It took me far too long to see it for what it was. In my early 20s, I had an opportunity to move across the country, and they talked me out of it. I listened to them because they were my parents, and that's all I knew. Eventually, I moved somewhere that wasn't too far away, and they'd still insist that living in the middle of nowhere was better. Where 30% of my peers have OWIs, and heroin has taken the lives of between 40 and 50 kids I went to high school with, where there are no jobs. My parents complain about there being no jobs, yet think less of me for going to where there are jobs. My entire generation has struggled to meet what used to be normal milestones. Buying a new car? Not many people do. Buying a house? Practically unheard of unless your parents pitch in the down payment. Every single time I've reached one of these milestones, my dad is quick to point out how he did it sooner, better, and easier, and acts like I'm a huge fuck-up. Last year, I earned enough to be considered part of the 1%. I'm out earning my peer group for household income on my own. The first time I bought a new car, I was still working on my credit and my career. I needed him to co-sign only because I had previously listened to bad advice from him against my better judgment and bought and tried to put money into a lemon. Every time I saw my dad, he'd say, "How's my car running?" And if I introduced him to a girl I was dating, he'd insult me repeatedly whenever they were around. Everything from pointing out that I was a picky eater when I was a kid, who wasn't, or when I dated a scientist, he's a chemist. He was delighted to point out that science wasn't my best subject and then start quizzing me on science things. It's totally normal for parents to quiz their adult children on complex chemistry equations and then insult them for not knowing the answers because the one chemistry class they took didn't cover very much. Right? That's totally normal dinner conversation, and it never made my guests uncomfortable. I'd keep listing all these things, but what matters is that I've had enough. I was always the polite kid. Just took all the insults because that's all I knew. I had to see how other families interacted to realize how unhealthy and unnatural that was. My brother-in-law and my dad have sat around and said a ton of negative shit about me, and then turned around and said all that stuff to me. So I've taken control, and they can't handle it. I'm uncomfortable around my family in a group setting, so I don't put myself in that situation. It's maybe passive-aggressive, but I feel like I'm taking the high road. Nothing good ever came out of them naming all my faults, so why should I sit around and name theirs? This is a decision that was a long time coming. At first, I wanted to explain myself to them, but they're in denial about everything. I've never complained about it or pointed out how badly it screwed up my confidence. I was at a wedding a few years ago, and my dad interrupted a conversation I was having with a relative I will probably never see again, distance plus their age, and just says, "Your childhood wasn't that bad, Lord of the Slums," out of nowhere. I hadn't said a negative thing to anybody about my childhood, to anybody. I hadn't said a negative thing, period. That was the spark. I started to think about things. And all the weekends where I was trapped, all the things I didn't get to do, all the experiences that were perfectly normal but denied to me because my parents moved me to a place where they didn't like anybody and wouldn't let me be around them. And that after all that, I was somehow expected to lead a really normal life. They were bad parents, lazy parents at best, and I shouldn't have to suffer through that any more than I already do. At first, I just didn't go visit them. Then I skipped a few holidays, and then I got sober and realized that the most negative people in my life had always been my family. I'm doing great now. A little bored on Christmas. Never learned how to make friends since I was being raised to hate everyone around me. But I'm not lonely, and I don't feel guilty. I feel alive for the first time. If you're avoiding your family during the holidays,